Moving into Unit 9B, we have to learn how to factor trinomials. Our first standard focuses on factoring trinomials with a leading coefficient of 1. However, the way that I teach it, it will be the same method that we'll use even when the leading coefficient isn't 1. Before you're able to jump into factoring, you need to be able to identify what A, B, and C are. Those come from the standard form of a quadratic, ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is the term that comes before the x squared, b is the term that comes before the x, and c is the constant that doesn't have an x. So our goal here is we're working to find trinomials where a is equal to 1, and we're going to find the factors of c that multiply together to get our c and add together to be b. Now the directions are written for you below, and I've also included a template, which is kind of like our training wheels for each of the problems that we're going to do. So in level 1, we are going to have all signs that are positive to kind of get us going and get us started. The first step is to check to see, can I take something out of all 3 pieces? And we cannot take something out of all 3 pieces, so we don't need to find a GCF. Second step would be to identify our A, our B, and our C. So the number in front of the x squared is 1. The number in front of the x is 3. And the constant is 2. So now we are going to find the factors of A times C. A times C is 2. 1 times 2 is 2. Now that 2 is going to be the top of our x, and the 3 will make up the bottom of our x. We are trying to get something to multiply to be this top number and add to be the bottom number. So writing out the factors of 2, we have 1 and 2. Now we want to pay attention to signs. Of course, right now all of our signs are positive, but that will not necessarily be the case with later problems. And to help us with the signs, we have our factoring flowchart in your notes. And when it refers to, remember, the last number, that would be the last number right here. And the middle number would be right here. Or we can refer to the last number as the top number of our x, and the middle number would be the bottom number of our x. So to start using our factoring flowchart, we ask ourselves, what is the sign of the last number or the top number? The sign is positive. So we'll follow the positive down. What is the sign of the middle number or the bottom number? It is also positive. So we'll follow positive down, and we can see that both of our factors in our x will need to be positive. So positive and positive. 1 and 2 is my only option here, so that's what I'm going to go with. And I really recommend to you that you double check at least mentally that this really works. 1 times 2 really does equal the 2 that I want. And then 1 plus 2 really does equal the 3 that I want. Doing that mental check can kind of save you from making those silly mistakes. We're going to use now the information that we have to fill in our box. The first term from our equation goes in the first box, ax squared. The last term goes in our last box. Now these two will come from our numbers from our x. We have 1 and 2, and we need these two boxes to add together to equal this middle term. So that means each of these boxes need to have an x. If we were to simplify what's inside our box right now, we would get what we started with. Now, the next step is to factor out your GCF from each row and each column. What can come out of the top row? x, what can come out of the bottom row? 2. What can come out of the left side? An x. And what can come out of the right side? Only 1. Our answer is going to be these factors that we just pulled out. We have x plus 1 and x plus 2. One of the common questions that I get asked is, does it matter which order we put those in? And it absolutely does not matter which order you put them in. You could have put 2x up here or 1x, and whatever order you want to put those in will still give you the same answer. Same with your answers. You could have put x plus 2 first and then your x plus 1. The order is up to you. Let's take a look at number 2. For number 2, we first check to see, can I take something out of all of these pieces? And I can't, so I don't need to include a GCF. We'll label A as 1, B is 7, and C is 10. A times C is 10. So 10 becomes the top of our x, and 7 becomes the bottom of our x. Writing out the factors of 10, we have 1 and 10, 2 and 5, and those are all of the factors that multiply to equal 10. Checking our factoring flowchart, the sign of the top number was positive. The sign of the bottom number was also positive. So we're going to use 2 positives in our answer. So if I make all of my factors positive, this is the one, 2 and 5, that equals 7. Quickly check. 2 times 5, does it really equal the 10 that I need? Yes. 2 plus 5, does it really add together to equal 7? And it does. The first term goes in the first box. The last term goes in the last box. And the 2 and 5 will make up our other 2 boxes in whatever order you choose. And you have to include an x to match our middle term. What can I take out of the top row? X. Out of the bottom row, I can take 2. The left side, an x. And the right side, I can take 5. Now, one unique thing that I like about the way that I set up factoring is that I can have several points throughout to check. We had our little check right here to make sure our x puzzle was correct. We can check inside to make sure that they all combine together and really equal this. And then lastly, we can check and make sure that our outside factors multiply to be our inside factors. And as long as they multiply to be the inside factors, it's a good indicator that we've done this correctly. So x plus 5 and x plus 2 are my solutions. Let's work out 2 more. Check to see if there's something that can come out of all 3 pieces, and there is not, so I do not need to include a GCF. Next, we'll indicate that A is 1, B is 10, and C is 24. A times C gives me 24. That means the top of our x is 24, and the bottom of our x will be our B value, 10. Factors of 24 include 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6, and that's all. It's important that we write them in order for a couple of reasons, to make sure that we don't miss any, and we'll see when our factoring flowchart that it makes it easier when I have opposite signs to deal with. Speaking of our flowchart, what's the sign of the last number or top number? It's positive, so we can have 2 positives or 2 negatives. The sign of the bottom or middle number is positive, so I'm going to use 2 positive numbers. So if I make all of my factors positive, which set will add together to equal 10? And that would be 4 and 6. So we have 4 times 6 equals positive 24, which is what I wanted. 4 plus 6 equals positive 10, and that's what I wanted. Inside the box, we have x squared for our first term. Our last term is 24. 6 and 4 will make up the other two boxes with an x from the middle term. What can I take out of the top row? I can take x. Out of the bottom row, I can take 4. The left side, only x. And the right side, I can take 6. So x plus 4 and x plus 6 are my solutions. Again, you know that you did this right if you can multiply the outsides and get the insides, and that your checks worked throughout the problem. Number 4, we first check to see, can I take something out of all the pieces? And I absolutely cannot. So we'll write A as 1, B is 2 or is 8, C is 16. A times C gives me 16. That means the top of my x will be 16. The B for my bottom of the x is 8. The factors of 16 include 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. Your calculator can help you do these. The sign of my last number is positive, so I'll follow the positive side down and know that I can use 2 positives or 2 negatives. The sign of my bottom number is positive, so I'm going to use 2 positives. So if I make everything positive, look at your sets of factors and determine which one will add to equal 8, and that's 4 and 4. Quickly check that 4 times 4 equals the top of the x, which is 16, and 4 plus 4 equals the bottom of the x, which is 8. The first term goes in the first box. The last term goes in the last box. And each of the 4's will go in the remaining boxes with an x each for the middle. What can I take out of the top? An x. Out of the bottom, 4. The left side, an x. The right side, a 4. So my solutions are x plus 4 and x plus 4.